Good afternoon. Hope you are all fine today. In this session, we are going to move into a new lesson about the animal's environment, which is the animal reproduction. The animal's reproduction. But before we start the session, I have to show something is done by your friend Fatima Makhlouf. I want to check this one. Listen carefully and then we are going to discuss together. So please let's start observing and watching this video.
Hello everybody, we are in theme animal environment. Today our lesson is about animal reproduction. Like plants, unicellular and multicellular animals give birth to new living.
Okay teacher, for example in this first slide, of course we have the title which is animal reproduction. Like plants, it means as plants, unicellular and multicellular animals give birth to new living things. Unicellular, as we said before, which are made of single cell, while multicellulars, two or more cells. Let's continue reading. Cells are the building blocks of life because they are the first level of the organization of an organism. Trillions and many types of cells make up the body with a living being. Reproductive cells are special cells that help the living things to reproduce. The word reproduce, it means to produce new offsprings. There are two modes of reproduction: sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. So, as in plants, we have two modes of reproduction: sexual and asexual. For example, mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and also insects have or undergo sexual reproduction, which needs the union or fusion of both sex cells, the male sex cell and the female sex cell. Let's continue.
Things. Cells are the building blocks of life. Trillions of cells make up the body of a living being. Reproductive cells are special cells that help the living being to reproduce and produce new offspring. There are two modes of reproduction: sexual and asexual. Mammals, birds, reptiles, and amphibians. Insects have sexual reproduction. The definition of asexual and how animals give birth during asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction doesn't require the presence of both partners. The animal reproduces by itself. As we see in this figure of a paramecium. Paramecium is a unicellular animal that has one organism. It lives in stagnant water. If we see in the second step, we have a construction appears at its middle. This construction increases and the paramecium splits into daughter paramica. In third step, we have two daughter paramica. This is a direct division that doesn't require the presence of two parents of different gender. It is in sexual reproduction.
Okay teacher, in this slide we have, or we can see here, the paramecium, and we know before that paramecium is a unicellular organism or living thing. But this living thing can reproduce asexually. It means by division. For example, and as Fatima said, this paramecium or mother paramecium divides into two parts to become to give, to produce two-daughter paramecium. Let's continue.
Sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction requires the presence of two parents of different gender, male and female. To reproduce, animal needs a male-female. Together, they can create offspring or babies. Some animals, such as chicken, fish, and snakes, lay eggs, which contain their offspring. Other animals, including a human, tiger, and sheep, grow their babies inside them until they are developed enough to be born. Stages of sexual reproduction. Most oviparous and viviparous animals reproduce through the presence of two parents of different gender, male and female. The male sexual cell called spermatozoon, sperm cell, and the female sexual cell called ovule. To give egg, so this egg develops to give a small animal. This is called fertilization. As we know, fertilization is the union means meeting between female and male. This is a sexual reproduction.
Okay, teacher. So oviparous animals are the animals that lay eggs, while the viviparous are the animals that give birth to live young. So both viviparous and oviparous, of course, may or must reproduce sexually. It means they need the male and female sex cells. The male sex cell is called spermatozoon. Spermatozoon, or we can say also sperm cell, is the male sex cell, while the female sex cell is called the ovum, and the plural of ovum is ova. By fertilizing the egg, a new fertilized egg is produced, and it will develop to newborn or to a new living thing. This stage, by the union of male and female sex cells, is called fertilization. Let's continue now.
So this fertilized egg have the newborn, have the offspring. Lambs, dogs, and other mammals have sexual reproduction. Thank you for watching, created by Fatima Makhlouf, teacher Zainab Sakar.
So, reproduction of animals means to give or produce more offspring or more newborn or more living things. We have different stages of reproduction. But before we move to the stages of reproduction, I have to mention with you the modes of reproduction. Modes of reproduction means the types. As we said before, we have two types of reproduction: sexual and asexual. We have mentioned these two types before in the plants and their environment in first chapter, but I have to remind you again. Sexual means the union or fusion of both sex cells. The union or fusion of both sex cells, the female and male sex cells, while the asexual needs or requires only one partner. It doesn't require the union of both. So, in first type here, I have the asexual reproduction and the paramecium here. The schema or figure of paramecium which goes through division. The paramecium, as we know, is a unicellular organism that lives in water. Of course, it inhabits the fresh water, and it is a very small animal or living thing. In order to reproduce, the paramecium elongates. It means stretches to be more long. A constriction appears at its middle. As shown in the above document, a constriction appears at its middle. This constriction increases, and the paramecium, this constriction, here is the constriction, it increases to become 2, and these 2 paramecium give or produce 2 daughter paramecium. So the paramecium is a unicellular living being which reproduces asexually, not sexual reproduction, asexually. Let's continue. This is direct division that doesn't require the presence of 2 parents or partners of different gender, so it is known as an asexual reproduction. This direct division known as asexual reproduction. So, by giving the information or the above information from the video and from the book, you have to start solving individually parts A, B, C on page 29. You have to start solving parts A, B, and C on page 69 on your copybooks. Starting time. And thanks for watching today.